Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's coverage of the Northwest Racing ARCA Series live on LSRTV, presented by Tom Dencho Auto Group. The Tom Dencho Auto Group has three locations: Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram in Hermiston, Oregon, Ford in Hermiston, Oregon, and Ford in Prosser, Washington. They have inventory where many manufacturers and dealers are struggling with new vehicle inventory. They have it. With more than 800 pre-owned vehicles, upfront pricing, and total transparency, they do it what's right every time. They come to you with remote test drives, remote trade appraisals, 100% online transactions, and nationwide delivery. They make it easy. They make it fun. For more information, visit TomDenchoAutoGroup.com. Tonight, we're at iRacing's virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway for 250 miles, 167 laps here on LSR TV. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Sam Dyer with Carlos Acosta in the director's seat for what's expected to be an interesting race tonight here at Charlotte. A long race, lots of tires available, and a difficult track for drivers to fare at.
Yeah, no, this is going to be an incredible one here, Justin. Excited to see these drivers take the track for qualifying, which that is going to start in about 5 minutes for them to get on course. But tonight it's going to be a tough one. Charlotte, in some ways, it seems simple and easy. It's kind of the cookie cutter D shape for these drivers to handle, but it's going to be throttle control for all these drivers to figure out, as well as kind of avoid the bumps on the inside lane where usually drivers were trying to go to primarily in the old iRacing setup. But there's been an update. The track surface has been messed with, and also some updates with the setups have been added in. So drivers, we're going to be seeing them all over the track.
Drivers have described the setup as potentially extremely stiff, where the bumps are going to be huge, especially on the entry to turn 3. And this is one of the main characteristics of Charlotte, even before some of the characteristics were changed in terms of the grip levels here at Charlotte from a few weeks ago. This track is fairly bumpy, and if you can't handle the bumps, it can absolutely catch you off guard, Sam.
Yeah, it really can. It can really make your car plow and go up onto the course, and at other times it can make it to where your car just wants to snap on you randomly. So it can be very treacherous if you're not careful and understanding on how those bumps could be adjusting your car. But that's what the ARCA series is for. It's to help those drivers earn those skills so that later on in the week when there's the cups and the trucks, they've got time to get themselves set up for that.
Drivers are still in the midst of their driver's meeting, but what we can tell you is practice was fairly tight for our competitors tonight. Kevin Smith, followed by Ryan Bloom, were 1-2 with a 30.858 from Smith. Bloom put up a 30.941, followed by Dennis Moore, Ricky Bozer, James Vining were at the top 5, separated by about 0.3 of a second. This is all, again, practice results for our respective competitors, where overall, it's about gaining experience, as you talked about, but also trying to get seat time to get used to how this track is going to fare.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of drivers, it worked out fabulous last week at Darlington. I mean, some of the drivers were having some really good runs. I mean, the one that won last week, Dennis Moore, he won last week, finished on fourth place in the Cup race, and also was having a solid run in the Cups on Monday last week. So, these drivers are having a lot of experience. It's been helping them. Another one of those drivers I'm looking at that has been doing well, Ryan Blum, he's been doing a fabulous job. He was so consistent from the ARCA to the Cup cars, trucks. He had a little bit of a hiccup, but the more track time that these drivers get, the better they get as long when the week moves along.
Indeed, and that's why Ryan Bloom is in second in practice. Keep in mind that our drivers that we didn't see last week too much, like Andrew Lemke, I'm on the top 10 on the board. Judd Wakefield also top 10 on the board as well through the practice session. But keep in mind our track conditions. They've been getting hotter and hotter as the day has gone on. Drivers currently dealing with 110 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature for qualifying. 78 degrees is your air temperature. In-sim day is May the 20th, 2021, and approaching high noon. Very windy as well here, Sam, and the wind could play a factor, currently gusting its way towards the back straightaway and towards the big jumbotron along that back straight of upwards of 10 miles an hour at the moment.
Yeah, currently it's at 9 heading west, and it's been moving up to 10. And, for driving in a normal vehicle, that little bit of a gust about 5 to 10 doesn't really feel like much. But with these drivers going 160 to 180 miles per hour, that little slight of a gust can really shift you on where you're driving on this track.
Few moments until qualifying gets underway. Who are some of the drivers you feel this track could lean towards from what we've seen so far, based on Northwest Racing Series competition as well, with what you've seen with the drivers, how they handle Darlington?
I mean, Kevin Smith is probably the obvious pick with the way that he's been running in practice and just has been consistent. And also due to the fact that the last time we were at a mile and a half course, it was Kevin Smith that won at Las Vegas a couple of weeks back. So he's the obvious pick. But I mean, some of those other drivers that are in the middle of the path that I'm expecting to have some good runs, Judd Wakefield, I think he's probably one of the drivers to watch out for in the 50 that I'm expecting to have a really good run for himself here tonight.
It's going to be very interesting indeed how these drivers fare for tonight's racing action. As drivers continue to discuss what to expect for tonight. What are you expecting how qualifying is going to potentially fare out for tonight, Sam, in terms of how drivers will handle the track, especially since it's now open?
Yeah, it is open for drivers to get out there. And, I think for the biggest thing to watch out for, is we saw this for Darlington and some other courses, is how well can they attack this first lap? If you can keep it clean and warm up those tires properly, you've got a really good shot in that second lap being faster than your first. But if you mess up your first lap, these drivers are going to be struggling to really keep up speed, have a good qualifying time. So I think a lot of them going to be aiming to stick around the middle of the course on this first lap. It's going to be where the safest part of the course to really save it from getting loose. But focus on getting your speed up to pace coming out of 3 here, starting your first lap.
Taking a look at Stephen O'Hare from Grants Pass, Oregon, who will start things off for qualifying among one of the first drivers onto the circuit. Have under 5 minutes to work with. And I'm keeping my eye on both the Beaver State racing machines on the track. Of course, we talked about Dennis Moore and his speed. O'Hare's shown some great speed in Northwest Racing Series competition over the past couple of years.
Yeah, O'Hare has just been up front, is always contender to be in the top 10, top 5 in the Cup and Truck Series. So expecting big things from the 41 here tonight. But I think the biggest thing for him is, like we've been stating, and we're going to continue to state, track time and getting some more time in the seat is always needed. His first lap comes across, and O'Hare starting this thing off with a pretty quick 31.963.
6/10 off his time in practice. Up at the top of the board, though, for now, will be Dennis Moore in the 44, his teammate, with a 31.4 to start off his qualifying attempt. George Watson, Andrew Lemke also jumping up to second and third on the board, respectively. And keep in mind, when it comes to these cars with the tire model, it can take an extra couple laps for the tires to get up to heat and full sawn when it comes to these National Impalas.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that, if we talk about race temp, that is going to be the track temp for sure. Of it right now, currently the track is at 112 degrees. Outside temp is going to be 78 degrees. So the track is pretty warm, means you can help build up the pace and those tires a lot quicker. But, once we get to the race time, you're not going to want that heat because it's going to burn those tires off so quickly.
So Dennis Moore did bump up his time, by the way, by an extra 10th. Lemke jumped up to second. O'Hare up to third position. Scott Harrah finished in fourth, moving to fifth now because Robert Gambill with a good run coming in forward. The 54 machine of Gambill looking very strong here, has been running strong and has some pretty good long run speed in a lot of these races. It's shown top 3 capability for each of the past 3 weeks, and for some, could be looking ready to potentially break out for a victory if he can keep himself clean.
Yeah, Gamble coming into today's race is actually tied with the most top 5s, coming in with a total of 3, with Stephen Paulson going to be that other driver with 3 top 5s, and looking to be one of the more consistent drivers that is going to be up front. And for today, looking to see that 54 trying to get another top 5 here at Charlotte.
Gambill wasn't able to improve his time, by the way, as we look at some of the other drivers to make their way around the racetrack. Currently on track, Ricky Belger, Kevin Smith, Stephen Paulson, Cameron Iverson, Troy Daggett among those competitors making their way around the racetrack. Carl Burke bumps his way to 7th position. Kevin Smith coming around for the end of his first lap now. And Smith was, as talked about, top of the board in practice and had some opportunities at Darlington. The luck just didn't go his way, but he's second in qualifying so far.
Yeah, that was just his first lap. So Kevin Smith really starting off quickly. First lap already up to second on the board, but he's going to shimmy off of 2, and that little bit of a bobble could cost them on time greatly, as James Viney now going to be on top of the board.
Bumps up with the 31.295 as we've been following along with Cameron Iverson on screen. As now, see how things turn out for Smiths. Kevin Smith ended up hitting the wall in the double zero, so he invalidated his second time around, unfortunately. The last of the drivers on the track, it looks like, will be Ryan Bloom in the 25, who will have an opportunity to take a time. Carl Burke is currently in the midst of practicing some extra laps around. He's already turned 2 qualifying laps. Appears 17th on back, will not elect to take times. 1 minute to go in session.
Yeah, I like Burke's call. Just get out there, get some track time, even though you're done with qualifying. This is something that I do on iRacing all the time is after done with qualifying, get some more track time. Maybe you didn't feel like you got enough during practice and just get as much, of a feel of how the tire wear is going to be in the first coming of this race.
Absolutely, and as you can see on the bottom of your screen, you're following along with some of the times. You can see Bloom is the one with the highlighted green on your bottom ticker with the 25 machine. Carl Burke with the yellow times indicates both his laps have been completed, I believe. Car's sent 53, 10th on the board is where he currently lies. Ryan Bloom, meanwhile, in the 25, a 31.329 will jump him up to third provisionally.
Great first time. It was better than Kevin Smith's first time. This is giving Bloom a great shot, as he's going to be smooth off of 2. 25's looking good, but he cannot make the same mistake that Kevin Smith made, and it looks like he runs out of time.
Not able to improve the times, and that will wrap up all the drivers for qualifying for respective times. It's time to look at how they'll start for today's race here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. On the pole, it's James Vining, the only driver to break into the twos. 1.295 your pole speed for Vining over Dennis Moore from Beaver State Racing. Row 2, Ryan Bloom will start alongside Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith hit the wall on his second lap. Troy Daggett will start at 5th alongside Cameron Iverson, one of his best starting positions so far this season in the 31.3s. Robert Gambill settled into 7th in qualifying. He'll start alongside Andrew Lemke. Ricky Belcher and Stefan O'Hare will start in row 5. And rounding out the top 6 rows, it's Carl Burke, Scott Harrell on the board, Sam.
It'll be in row number 7. You got Stephen Paulison and also that of Watson in 14th place. So I can see what Watson's going to be doing for these drivers. And then you've got back in row 8 of Judd Wakefield and Jeff Hagen. And then down in row 9, that's where we're going to have Ray Forner as well as Frank Harris. And then back in 19th and 20th that we're going to be having of Ritter, Cooper, and finishing out our final result is going to be Lundberg.
That's a look top to bottom out your running order for today's action. Again, 167 laps on the board for the Northwest Racing Series and its ARCA Series here at Charlotte. That's 250 miles. These drivers will have 4 tire sets available in the pits for today. In sim time, just past 12:11 p.m. Track temperature expected to get potentially hotter towards the midway portion of the race. 106 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, 78 degrees the air temp. Winds currently calming down to about 6 miles an hour to the west. The drivers are now rolling here on the racetrack. Your keys to victory for tonight, Sam?
It's keep your car straight. It's 1, 2, watch those tires. Conserve, conserve, conserve. I think the drivers have to be focusing on that. 3, avoid hitting the bumps. If you are able to stay in the center to high lane, you're going to be doing quite well for yourself, and seemed like that was where a lot of the speed was. And these drivers, I think that's going to be their goal. The only biggest issue, if you're running high, though, is when you're trying to save the car. If it starts to break loose, so you might overcorrect it and throw it into the outside wall.
These competitors do tonight. Note, 129 of Lundberg did not make it to the start. Everyone else, though, did. So 20 drivers will take your green flag for tonight's action. But it's the Catman, James Vining, in control of the field, and the 333 with Dennis Moore to his outside. Who will come away with the victory at Charlotte? We're about to find out on LSRTV. Pace car's off. Green flag waits up at the stand. And we are underway from Charlotte. First couple laps led by James Vining. He's already pulled away by 0.3 of a second. Dennis Moore has already built up a buffer of 0.7 between him and third position. But Cameron Iverson, one of the biggest movers already, was able to jump up to third after a good launch.
Yeah, Iverson just took off like a rocket, and he is in go mode. And, you know, for Iverson, he's feeling the new tires. He wants to get going as fast as possible, but that could be backfiring later on in the next about 15 laps when those tires, they might be falling off way sooner than what the rest of the field's doing.
Ryan Bloom, among the drivers currently trying to battle at the moment, in 5th position. Trying to hold off Troy Daggett, who's trying to get the high line to work, nearly pushes up into the wall.
Daggett's got to be careful there. He's been just, you know, lingering around that outside. He's trying to make that outside lane work right now. It's going to be Ryan Bloom who's really going to be conquering that pass. And then behind them, I'm watching out for the 562, how well he's going to be doing there, as Lemke's doing a great job. He's been trying to move forward, kind of stalling out, feeling boxed in on the outside.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the interesting things. We alluded to this a little bit with the adjustments to some of the tracks that allows the outside groove to come into play, in particular the middle to high line. How much do you think that will factor in for some of these drivers who want to try and run the wall compared to those who want to paint the blue line?
I know early on, the drivers that are going to be low, going for that blue line, that's going to be where they're successful. But Lemke's doing a great crossover move, trying to get by Bloom. Just doesn't have the run off the corner just yet. As the run goes on longer and longer, probably in the next 15 laps, then we're going to be seeing that middle lane really conquer the inside. And then as the run continues on, the higher they're going to move up.
Right now, some good battling amongst these drivers as we see some of the times. Ricky Belger also joining the fun in the 42 machine. Lemke trying to wheel it on the bottom side still. And Belger, someone who showed some good speed in Northwest Racing Series competition over the years. 42 machine trying to get the high line really working early on. Able to get the bit of a pull though. Pass right on by Lemke.
Yeah, the draft isn't much here at Charlotte, but a little bit just helping that Bozier able to make the pass. Lemke now going to be just staying low, and I think Lemke, he was trying to make that higher lane work. Felt like he was stalling out, so he dropped low, and now he's losing time as Bozier makes the pass, and now he's going after Bloom. Bloom
currently a -3 on the race so far. He is going backwards with how things have fared out so far. Keep in mind, Iverson has settled in now amongst the top 3 within their draft, and draft is not expected to be a major factor for today, Sam, but there is still the potential possibility of dirty air, keep in mind.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest thing that these drivers are going to have to worry about, is dirty air over the draft being helpful. It's going to pull them along just slightly, but sometimes that pull carries a little bit too much speed than what you're expecting, and when you're trying to let off, you might feel like, oh, I let off enough, and then you're plowing straight into the outside wall.
Indeed. It's just that fine balance, especially at a track like this, as one driver has scraped the wall, believe, in that grouping of cars from the secondary pack. Meanwhile, battle for the race lead. Dennis Moore wants to take away the lead from James Vining.
Vining staying low, and it looks like Dennis Moore, he's trying to figure out where to place himself in the center of the corner. He just found the speed, got up to speed so much faster, and here he comes on the inside. Vining easily giving that one up.
And there's the give and take that some drivers really like to see and have to have sometimes early in the race, Sam, because there's a lot who like to battle, well, more on the circuit, and others who like to keep it nice and calm.
Yeah, I mean, for Vining, I think he recognized they don't want to be challenging too hard, kind of conserve these tires for later on, and just let Dennis Moore go. He really is the car that's on the move. He's still running, you know, less than sub 32 times currently, and the only other driver running that close is Kevin Smith back in 4th place. Smith, I mean, he is now making his move, and he's caught up to now the back end of this battle for three.
Keep in mind that it's a choo-choo train of drivers starting to form up right behind them. The moment trying to sort themselves out, you can see amongst them is Kevin Smith, who is kind of dropped down to fourth position. He's looking for third, however. And we were talking about this, Iverson starting to lose some speed. Now with those tires starting to wear in, just 13 laps in.
Yeah, I think Viney might have been doing the same exact strategy as Iverson because they're both looking like they're fading back. Just looking at their times that they've been putting down, falling off as Dennis Moore, he continues to pull away almost over a second over Viney.
Smith wasn't able to complete the pass, however, as meanwhile, Moore has pulled away to nearly a full second. And one of the main things when it comes to this type of car I hear a lot is you need to drive slower to be faster, if that makes sense, because there's a saying, slow in, fast out, for example. And for some, that's, in some phrases, 80% being 100%. That was one of the phrases being used from Donovan Strauss, who was the winner of one of the Road to Pro qualifying series races last night, for example.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of those top guys, they recognized it. You got to be slow. I mean, you got to be doing the things that are going to be setting you up to have the best exit possible to maximize your straightaway speed. And, you know, for some of these drivers on the lower tiers, they're trying to learn that and get better at it of, okay, I got to recognize, got to be slower because, you know, when you got fresh tires, you're just thinking, I want to go as fast as possible. I'm carrying all this speed. Let me just throw it into these corners and going to be very difficult. As we're watching the Hornets nest, this is from about 5th on back to 10th as these drivers all stacked up on one top of another.
By the way, you may have seen moments ago, that was Jeff Hagan, who was in the pit lane. Technical issues has seen him now be in 20th position, several laps down. Lemke, meanwhile, is the drivers amongst them scrapping. Also scrapping, Kevin Smith has got him by Cameron Iverson, a good 2 seconds in front of that Hornet's nest.
Yeah, Kevin Smith, now he's going to be deciding after that battle that he had with Iverson. It took him a couple of laps for him to finally make that pass, which could be irritating at times, especially when you know you're faster than the guy in front of you. But luckily, Smith has made the pass, and we'll see how much wear and tear he's done with battling with that of the 65. But Smith's looking good. He's sticking extremely low to that white line. Watching a Dennis Moore. Dennis is he's picking and choosing what lane he wants to be. Sometimes he's running high. Other times he's going right to that blue line. And so it's completely different from what we've been seeing some of the drivers in the middle of the pack.
Take a lap with Dennis Moore. In fact, as you can see just how dialed in he's in and has been in this race. Of course, your winner from Darlington Raceway, and smoothing the gas and smoothing the miles an hour, you can see as well.
He's really taking his time. Then you're going to see here through 3 and 4, he enters medium to high, and then he arcs it down through the center of the corner, getting right to the blue line at the apex, and then holds it and gets right back into the throttle coming off. And that's where he's beating a lot of other drivers. Other drivers, they're kind of entering a little bit too shallow, which is hurting their exit speed.
You can see with the times too, Vining losing upwards of a 10th on average a lap. For the past 5 laps, Moore averaging a 32.3, Vining a 32.4. Moore is the quickest car on the racetrack as a result here at the moment. As well, Iverson has fallen into the grasp of Brian Bloom, has been shuffled back to 5th position. O'Hare is also trying to charge the field at a similar clip to Vining in terms of lap time pace.
Yeah, I'm looking at Iverson, thought maybe he got into the wall with how slow he's been running, but it's just the tires. They are burnt out and toasted in under just 20 laps, and it's not good. He's running almost over a full second slower than the rest of the field, when at one point he was the fastest driver in the first 5 laps.
So already about a third of the way through our first fuel window, and keep in mind, fuel estimated to take 60 to 64 laps per run for today, so essentially it's a 2-stop race, Samuel, to make it on the gas.
Yeah, 2 stops for these drivers is not a bad call. I think some of them could be thinking going for a 3-stop, just like Iverson right now, feeling those tires really drifting away. We could be seeing Iverson thinking about pitting here probably around lap 45 to try to undercut everyone else while other drivers focusing to get to lap 60. But we're going to be seeing a lot of strategies here tonight, especially with the amount of tires the drivers have. With having 4 sets in pit road, it gives them options on how they want to attack this course.
By the way, Kevin Smith has also been left by James Vining. Vining over the radio mentioned that his front tires may be going away. Also, you can also see Robert Gambill has been able to settle into a grouping in front of Ricky Bozier and Steven Paulison, who are fighting hard for position. That's for ninth spot, right behind that purple and yellow machine.
Yeah, I mean, for Gamble as well, for Paulson, talked about it earlier on the broadcast. They've been the most consistent of having the most top 5s coming into this race with 3. And both of them just been being patient so far, not trying to get too aggressive for themselves. And they're slowly making their charge forward.
And the driver they also have reeled in, Cameron Iverson, who really nearly clocked the wall coming off of turn 2 a few laps ago. And it seems like if you burn up your stuff early on, you're losing the right front. And the tighter this car gets, the worse it is trying to drive around the racetrack on a long run like this.
Yeah, and I'm kind of concerned with how much Iverson is lost on ground. He's running over 2 seconds slower than what his best time is. And for some of the other drivers, they're only about a second off. Iverson is in a precarious spot because if he drops all the way back to around 13th place, I would imagine he's got to be thinking pitting here around lap 40 to maybe 45. He can't be losing more ground as behind him, Burke and Bozier making contact, and luckily neither of them got into the outside wall.
Apologies coming over the radio as it was a slight door ding amongst those two. Carl Burke able to keep on going, so is Ricky Bozier. -2 for the 42 now in the race. Frank Harris is also slowly creeping into this fight, as well as Wakefield. As Wakefield now is able to try to go on the charge, try and get himself up a +4. Let's take a look at what happened. You can see how tight things got.
Yeah, just a little bit too tight for the 42. And luckily, I think that is the biggest thing for Carl Burke, is that he was not shoved directly into the wall. But that was a major scare for those drivers. That is not how they want to start out today's race.
I want to reference the confidence meter we seen moments ago, by the way, where if you let that confidence meter get too low, Sam, that's where you start making a ton of mistakes. You need to be able to keep your confidence up because confidence is speed, especially at a track like this.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the drivers, they got to be focusing and kind of racing the track at this point. If you've been aggressive in those first 15 laps, you now have to, you know what Iverson's feeling. You are in the clutches of the drivers around you. You got to figure out how to make sure you are not putting yourself in any spot that's going to be ruining your day or the drivers around you. But for those other guys that were kind of in save mode, they now can think and be confident of, I've got fresh tires, but also stay mentally focused. Just because I've got fresh tires, I don't want to burn them off too soon before we get to an end to a run.
Absolutely. And by the way, the reason you've seen Wakefield lose a position there, Jeff Hagan has come out of the pit lane after being down in the lane 13 laps. Loses a pick, essentially. Wakefield now with an opportunity to get the position back, though, on the bottom side of the racetrack. Ken Hagan had issues technically and dropped off the out of the garage area, as meanwhile things have just gotten hairy around that group as Iverson nearly hit the wall.
Yeah, Iverson almost hit the wall. You also had that of Wakefield and Bozier side by side, and they were coming up to the 65 extremely quickly, and luckily the 42 backed off, let the 65 go on by. But Iverson at this point is kind of being a hazard for a lot of the field when they're trying to make some passes on how to get by the 65 as he continues to drop back, and he's still completely off the pace.
This allows the opportunity, keep in mind this series, to be able to learn how you save your tires. And right now, Iverson getting a very big lesson on that. He has dropped now from being as high as the top 3 all the way to 13th position and a good 13 seconds back of the race lead. Among the drivers who are on the charge, up the racetrack, keep in mind, is one of the Beaver State Racing machines, the 41. of O'Hare is now attacking Ryan Bloom just up the road from where Iverson is.
Yeah, O'Hare and Bloom, they've been side by side now for about a lap and a half, and O'Hare's been looking good, but these tires are starting to get older, about halfway through a stint, and if you have not been careful, you could be finding yourself tightening up through the center of the corner, and we do not want to be seeing O'Hare pushing up, but O'Hare easily making the pass now on the entry of one, and has made the clean pass on that of Ryan Bloom.
33.3 is being ran by O'Hare at the moment. That's now 6 positions gained. And keep in mind, he's got a pretty interesting viewpoint of where James Vining has settled in. Vining has settled into 5 seconds behind the race lead, and he is slowly creeping on into the triple three.
Yeah, I mean, he is doing a great job running very quickly, doing everything he needs to do. Update for drivers in the back. Ricky Bozer going to be the first driver coming in the pits. He got extremely loose about a lap ago coming off a 2 and feeling like he needs tires or could be taking a tow. Something happened to the 42 where he is blinking and he's decided to call it a day.
So Ricky Bozer is elected to pull off the racetrack after running inside the edge of the top 10 much of this race. Fortunate for him, as Paulison would check out on him. He's now feeling a bit of pressure from Carl Burke, who is now starting to make his moves. Carl Burke floated around 11 position, has seen top 5 speed all season. It's just been the matter of luck for Carl Burke. He didn't have that luck at Darlington, Sam.
No, he really didn't have the luck. Darlington really hurt everyone, it seemed like. Every single driver had some type of issue. The Darlington is always, I mean, that's why it's got the name, Too Tough to Tame. Lady in Black certainly attacked a lot of these drivers, but I think a lot of them excited to be here at Charlotte because it gives you a shot back at the cookie cutter D-shaped courses and lets you really try to figure out these courses a little bit better for themselves. As Iverson comes into the pits for the 65, not surprised that he had to come in this soon into a run.
He ended up hitting the wall a couple laps ago. So this is going to be interesting how his strategy now breaks out, because while you have the tire sets available, here's the reasoning why, in theory, it's to stop, because normally the best strategy in a lot of cases, as drivers will learn over time, is the one that minimizes the amount of stops. Another driver has just hit the wall, the 51. Troy Daggett has elected to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, Daggett's been, flirting with the outside wall a lot, and he's going to have issues. Also, it looked like Judd Wakefield is backing it down as he got into the wall as well on the entry of 1 and 2. So we're seeing a lot of drivers now having issues as the tire wear gets higher and higher.
And James Vining is going lower and lower on the board. O'Hare also able to make the pass by being the fastest car on the racetrack. The downside, 6 seconds the differential between him and the race leader. It's been a good day overall, you have to say, for Beaver State Racing as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, they've been so good in the Cup Series with that of Lake Peterson just dominating that series, and also seeing Justin Yee having his great runs. Just he doesn't have the luck in the Cup Series, but that's going to trickle down to these other drivers that are in the developmental of Dennis Moore and O'Hare, and they've been just doing so good for themselves.
Indeed, at this point. Looking back in Paulison, meanwhile, Robert Gambill's also in this grouping, by the way. They're settled into the 33.5s, and these are all well-respected competitors who, especially if you think back to last year for the Cup Series, for Northwest Racing Series action, were all drivers who had top 10 pace.
Yeah, I mean, top 10 pace and translating that to consistency. I think that is the biggest thing that some of these drivers are really trying to focus on and work on as a whole, is how do we keep ourselves consistent when you've got that pace? It seems like you have it almost every single week, but can't translate it to every single lap. And that's what that's what the ARCA series really gives these drivers, is that chance to work on that consistency.
129 laps to go, coming towards 128 this time by. To reset, Dennis Moore is currently a race leader by almost 6 seconds over Kevin Smith. O'Hare, Vining, Bloom, followed by Gambill, Paulison, Burke. Lemke and Frank Harris currently rounding out the top 10. Separation 18 seconds from first to 10th.
Yeah, now it's the question of, we saw during Darlington, we saw a lot of cars going a lap down. Will that continue? Dennis Moore won last week. We'll see if he can continue on his lapping ways. As he's just trying his best. And now is the interesting part with some drivers coming to the pits and getting, getting in tires so early, is now they're going to be a factor of running around so much faster than the rest of the field.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, the pressure is still on here for Gamble as well. He has started to slip and slide back into the clutches of Paulison. Salem, Morgan driver trying the second line, and I've noticed the drivers have been going higher and higher as this run has gone on, Sam.
Yeah, the grip levels of trying to stay low is, if you try to stay as low as possible around that blue line during a whole entire stint, you're going to burn those tires off so much quicker than you would starting to merge up a little bit higher, because you're not putting as much wheel input and you're not trying to wear and tear as much as you would be. Looks like, though, of O'Hare able to make the pass for second place as we continue to watch all these amazing battles going around the course.
Especially with the leader stuck in lap traffic, O'Hare was able to get the run on Smith last time in turn 1. Smith went way up the racetrack. Also in that air battle we were keeping an eye on, Carl Burke is currently in the midst of fighting with Paulison. That's side by side. Gambo is trying to run the middle of the racetrack. Burke still painting the blue line in the 53, able to make the move. Put Burke up to 7th.
Yeah, and if Burke's going to make the pass here on Gamble, he's got to get below the 54, and he will try to push Burke up. I mean, going to push Gamble up. Burke's going to stay low, and 53, tired of waiting, he's on the move.
Carl Burke is now quicker than your race leader, Dennis Moore, at the moment. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on in terms of if he can close up a bit of ground to James Vining, who is still 3 seconds up the track. Ryan Bloom was able to pass by him a couple laps ago to move Vining down to a -4 on the day.
I mean, this is that part of the balancing act for drivers on how much have you been saving, and have you been saving too much, backing off your pace so you can have a great run for these final 20 laps instead of trying to save yourself fully.
Going along with Carl Burke and looking at the times, you can see how much he gained, about 2/10 last time by compared to what Moore was able to turn. Downside is how far he's around the racetrack at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's about 11.5 seconds back, trying to gain time on the leader, but when you're that far back, it is now an all-race comeback that you're going to have to put Burke into if he's able to do so.
There's the time now coming in from Dennis Moore. Last time by 33.511. Coming across the stripe. It'll be for Burke a 33.421. So a little bit more ground gain. Once more. Might be able to get defining by the end of this run.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot to get up to some of these other drivers, but certainly with the pace that we are seeing Burke put down, I think Vining is an easy pick before we get to the next pit stop.
A little bit of a squirrely moment for Paulison, and he is elected to come down to the pit lane. So Stephen Paulison has now opened up the window for the main race leader so far. It looks like drivers may be trying to go to lap 50 and then maybe lap 100.
Yeah, trying to figure out how they're going to split this race up. I think for the drivers that are coming in now, this is a 2, potentially 3 stop window that they're putting themselves into. Also going to be Scott Hara going to be following suit with Paulison into the pits. But if you can make it to somehow 50, 55, you are solid and good to make this into a 2-stop race.
Absolutely. As near contact into the wall goes George Watson. Had to really lock up the brakes to avoid Frank Harris when he went to the pit lane. Both of them will duck down.
That was one of the weirdest moments because, yeah, Harris was coming into the pits and evasive maneuvers happened, and it overall hurt that of the 69. Watson was able, luckily that was in front of pit road, so able to come back into pit lane. But that could be Watson using his fast repair this early on. Watson
losing a bit of time into the lane as well, trying to roll into the box. Frank Harris is also losing tons of time in the lane. Let's take a look at what happened. See it on the right side of your screen. And a major brake lockup trying to dodge it.
Yeah, I mean, the closing rate speed between that of the 11 and 69, it just, Watson had to make an abrasive move, and because he had to pull up so quickly, it just launched the car into the outside wall and hurt that of Watson. He had to use that fast repair, and now he is in the clutches. If there's another wreck he's involved, it's going to hurt him.
Gamble is also ducked this time. Kevin Smith has also lost a spot to Bloom, so Bloom has now picked up the pace by a ton all of a sudden as the 54 round rolls into his box.
Looking at, of O'Hare, he's been doing a great job. Now he's cut the difference between first and second below 5 seconds. And I mean, what a charge here from O'Hare. Started back in 10th place up to second, and now running down the leader. I think O'Hare's going to be someone to watch out for if this run continues to stay green.
It's still a lot of ground to try and gain up on Dennis Moore, but it's been a solid race overall. You can see he picked up a few tenths the past couple laps. He's also been averaging a 10th of a second quick the past 5 and a 10th of a second quick the past 10 as well on average.
Kevin Smith now going to get service done for the 00 as he was running up in the top 5 for most of this race. Smith's been looking great for himself.
Smith, so is Ryan Bloom, will also come in. So the 25 has also ducked down. You can see some of the stints and some of the gaps, how they broke down. So also coming in will be Lemke, who has quietly had a very solid race in the 562.
Yeah, Lemke's he's put himself into the top 10, running about 6th, 7th for most of this race, and he hasn't really put himself in trouble. He just found his little niche in the pack and has just been staying there. But Lemke, though, that was a very odd move, and it looks like he missed his pit box, and then coming out of the pits, he's going to slam it into the inside wall. Troubles for the 562.
And Andrew Lemke, having things snowball, tried to pit in what was James Vining's pit box originally, then came back out in the pit lane and spun the tires, and now he's going to have to go around the whole racetrack. So all of a sudden, Lemke goes from a solid day to potentially being more than a lap down.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lemke, he just got a little bit distracted because so many other drivers, they don't have triple-digit numbers. As here's the replay of what happened to Lemke. As I think once he saw triple digits on his pit wall, thought, hey, maybe that was him. Wasn't. He missed it. Had to get back up to speed, panicked, and away he goes out of pit lane.
And it's so easy to do that if you slam the gas down too quickly, too, to get that massive bit of tire spin, even on fresh tires.
Yeah, it's completely very easy to do so. And, oh, man, that is just a tough order. I mean, we're just praising him on having such a good run for himself. And now he had to limp it all the way around another lap. We'll see if he is going to be coming in this time by.
We'll see. He'll come in with a car in front of him, and Aaron Cooper, who has had a very quiet race. So Lemke will lose at least a lap or two at minimum as a result of this sequence and mistake. O'Hare is also eaten into Moore's gap and then some. From 4 seconds the last time we checked into, how about 2 seconds?
It's been about 4/10 every lap for the past 3 or 4 laps. O'Hare is screaming quick, and this was something I was about to point out, is the longer you stay out, you're going to have the freshest tires. But I think for Moore, it's kind of a game of chicken at this point between Moore and O'Hare of who's going to pit first.
Dennis Moore has called over the radio he plans to come in this time by, so the 44 taking the pit entry, and O'Hare's going to follow him. O'Hare able to gain a few more tenths on the entry.
Seeing the 44 coming to the pit road, he could be a little bit more aggressive and try to come in. The difference is about 2 seconds. I mean, this is a complete positive for O'Hare, and he's going to be on equal footing. We'll see how much faster O'Hare can be now, just worrying about the driver in front of him and not having to pass so many cars through traffic.
O'Hare overran a bit of his pit box. That's going to lose him some time. And at the moment, Paulison, currently scored in third, will be among the first of the drivers who have already taken tires so far. See how things cycle through. Dennis Moore still lost a ton of time in his pit box, so that evens out the time. O'Hare would have lost from overrunning his box. Separation now amongst them. Just a couple of seconds as Paulison will jump him along with Kevin Smith on the racetrack. Iverson will also jump them.
Yeah, Paulson was able to pit 10 laps ago, and so with having that 10-lap advantage, he's able to have this gap over that of Dennis Moore and of O'Hare. And O'Hare as well as Moore, they've now fallen back to 5th and 7th for both of them. They've got some traffic to get by, but luckily they've got the fresher rubber to easily pass everyone in front of them.
Yeah, we need to close up about 3 seconds or so, as Moore's already passed his way by James Vining. So move Moore up to 4th position, and Iverson, keep in mind, he'll be quickly gaining on the 65 when it comes to these drivers. O'Hare overall cycled just under 2 seconds behind Moore.
Also battle for the lead, Paulson and Smith, they're right on top of one another, and looking at it, Smith's got about 4-lap fresher tires than the 58. He should be able to make this pass cleanly, but Paulson, he's not giving up the lead that easy.
Paulson playing very defensively right now. You can see the pace differential from Smith, able to close in the past 5. Just trying to find the place to be able to make the move on the fresher rubber. And he'll be able to make the move maybe to the inside. Yes, Paulison opens up the door. Kevin Smith to the inside for the race lead.
And Dennis Moore has now moved his way up into 3rd place as Cameron Iverson, he is now back to where we saw him around lap 20 to lap 30. He is falling back because he pitted so much earlier than everyone else. He's already running about 2 seconds slower than the rest of the field. This is going to be terrible for the 65 as he continues to fall back.
Be a tough race now, as O'Hare, meanwhile, was losing tons of time to Dennis Moore, his teammate, as a result of the battling. You can see around him, it's just passed by Bloom. Needs to still pass by Vining, and then it's clean air to get up to the 44, who is still now your fastest car on the track by 2/10.
And, you know, we talk about being patient and focused here. I think for O'Hare, it's okay. It's still a net gain from where he was at when he started the race. As Vining and Good now going to be getting out of the way, and now it's a free charge. O'Hare's got that fresh air and the track to try to run down Dennis Moore. And we'll see if he's able to do so. But O'Hare, we saw the longer the run went on, the better the 41 got.
It's also going to be interesting how the rest of this lap traffic comes into play for the rest of these race leaders, because Charlotte is a track where you usually don't have to panic too much about the lap traffic because there are the multiple different lines that you can race along. It's just a matter of where the traffic is and are they going to be predictable for you to make a move, as Vining right now looking to be under attack by Bloom.
Yeah, Bloom's got about 4-lap fresher tires, and Vining just recognizing that, going high, giving the space to the 25 machine. And, you know, looking at the whole entire field, they are all so spread out on the different tire strategies that you kind of have to just relinquish your position so easily. Dennis Moore now side by side with Paulson and going to be easily making the pass for 2nd place and slowly but surely trying to get back up front to lead this race. So, you know, I think it's the biggest question of whose strategy might be the best. And for Kevin Smith, he pitted earlier than what Dennis Moore has done, has a little bit of a gap. If the strategy continues on, will Dennis Moore have enough time if he continues to try to stretch these stints out to run down the drivers that pit earlier?
And it looks like possibly an unscheduled stop for the 51. He's had more scrapes added to his car. He ended up riding the safer barrier in 1 and 2, and that's why Troy Daggett has now had to come down only about 28 laps into his stint.
Yeah, just Troy's got to work on trying to focus on keeping himself off of that wall. He's enjoying the outside and finding the speed for himself, but he's just a little bit too far up, as we're going to be seeing a replay of what exactly happened here to Daggett, running high right into the safer barrier wall, and then just rides it.
Just got too high on the corner entry and was enough to propel him up the track, it almost looked like, Sam.
Yeah, kind of similar to what we saw a little bit of last week at Darlington, where some of the drivers just got a little bit too high and if you hit the wall just right, it just launches your car and wants to ride the wall. And I've seen a couple of times where you can sometimes ride the catch fence if you can get it up that high. But that is not where you want your machine to be. You are costing yourself on time. And for Daggett, he's already used a fast repair, I believe, because he's gotten the wall so many times. He can't be doing that anymore.
We've used it on that repair, but for the race lead, here comes Dennis Moore. Inside, fresher tires, takes advantage.
Easy peasy for the 44 as he continues to cruise along. And now going to get by lap traffic. That's the 26 of Ray Fortner, who going to be, for Ray, it's been a pretty decent day for himself. Up in the top 15. He was running pretty slow early in that first stint, and he's been doing a great job the longer the race goes on, moving his way forward.
The 26, by the way, ended up pitting early as well. One of the earlier pitters of this race around the same strategy as Iverson. It's currently 13th now on the racetrack at the moment. 12 cars are on the lead lap here at Charlotte. O'Hare, by the way, has also passed his way into third position. The downside, he's lost a ton of time now compared to before. 3 seconds behind compared to the under 2 seconds he was out of the pit lane. Just doesn't seem to have the same short run pace as Moore.
Yeah, which, with how much O'Hare was gaining on Moore at the end of the stint, I'm kind of not worried for O'Hare. I think it's more of let Moore go. I'll conserve myself for those final 20 laps in our stint. And once we get to pit road, hopefully I'll be able to gain enough time to get right back on the 44's bumper. But, if we start to see any cautions coming up for these drivers, that's when I'm going to be concerned for O'Hare if he's going to be able to beat out Moore.
I'm intrigued about that as well with all these different strategies coming in. And this is where that give and take conversation comes into play that we had before, Sam. And we're seeing that now definitely coming in big time.
Yeah, especially for O'Hare right now. He has to be extremely patient. He's got a lot of lap traffic in front of him that he had to just back off and almost ran into, as Smith's been able to cleanly catch up. You talked about getting to the lap traffic at good times, and when it's works out, and sometimes even for O'Hare, he caught up to lap traffic when they were battling going on for positions. And when you see lap traffic side by side, you're kind of nervous to even try to force it 3 wide, and you kind of have to just wait and be patient for them to sort out their battling.
Smith has settled into a rhythm, and O'Hare has actually dropped to a pace slower than Smith's at the moment. We'll have to see how this plays out. There is a battle grouping starting to form up, by the way, a little bit between Gambill, Vining, and Burke at the moment with their strategies. Burke in particular is one of the ones keeping an eye on. Also seen, Hera has also been able to jump on by the 26 in terms of scoring. Polisid has stayed cycled into 4th.
And looking at these drivers, I mean, they're so different on all the different strategies. Looks like coming in the pits is going to be the 27, but here's a replay of, oh no, sorry, just side by side watching different battles that are going on. Man, has it been interesting to see the different ways these drivers have been having to battle with one another, just because of, the ways that some drivers are able to save their tires, those that haven't been able to save. And I think that's what's been really picking and choosing when they're going to be coming into pit road, is how well have you been able to conserve your tires for the longer run.
Absolutely. And as these drivers continue to work their way around, we're coming up to 94 laps to go at this point. How do you see the strategy breaking down now for some of these competitors?
I mean, for some of them, I'm looking at, for Troy Daggett, he had to come in early, but for everyone else, they're looking to stretch this thing out for another 20 laps or so, 20 to 30 laps. So they're going to be aiming for around lap 100 to 105. I think for Dennis Moore and O'Hare, they're aiming for around 110 to 115. I think if for Dennis Moore and for O'Hare, they're going to be able to make it and really still have rubber to battle at the end of this race. Everyone else, they're going to be hoping that a caution comes out, or it might be tire rubber. That is what costs them and makes these drivers have to come in for probably a third time in a pit road.
Here's the risk, though, with the third time coming in. You risk going an extra lap down here, Sam.
Yeah, that's the biggest disadvantage for a lot of these guys. And I mean, I'm mainly looking at Cameron Iverson. He's going to have to come in the pits here quite shortly. He's coming to the same stint that he's been running on. He actually just brushed the wall. So the 65, he's having his issues, but currently running in ninth place. I'm surprised that he's been running up in the top 10 as well as he has, especially with how much tire wear he's been having for himself.
It's been a decent recovery drive for Iverson indeed in the 65, but it's going to be interesting how things play out, especially with strategies decided upon him for this respective race.
Battle for fourth, Paulson and Bloom side by side. It looks like Bloom easily going to be making that pass. Steve Paulson, at one point when the pit cycle came, and everyone came through the pits, it was the 58 in the lead for just about 2 laps before Smith came in and made the pass. But I mean, for Paulson, he might be thinking about doing another short pit, but at the same time, got to be thinking about how far can they push it for tires. Why? As the 27 gets into the wall in front of Paulson.
That's Jeff Hagan having some more problems. Hagan 15 laps down. We stay green as we look back at Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith has already lost a spot to O'Hare. Keep in mind with the tire differential.
O'Hare's still losing ground. I mean, he's almost back to 4 seconds back from Moore. And he's slowly it just looks like O'Hare is just waiting for 40 laps into a run, which that's going to be about 18 laps or so. So around lap, 196 is where O'Hare's looking to really pounce and try to gain all this time back. But he's playing a very risky game of hoping that the race stays green when we've seen multiple drivers get into the wall and had a potential to bring out a yellow.
Keep in mind when it comes to O'Hare that he's a driver that is a dirt tracker that ran in a VW Rabbit mini style and dominated with several victories before moving up to the IMCA modified ranks. So he's someone with some experience where in the real world had his career halts for a couple decades, but looked to dust off the racing boots. Again, that is Stefan O'Hare that's currently running in second in regards to that. Tyra Kane was the one who ended up bringing him on board for iRacing, essentially, Sam. And that's where a lot of drivers, it seems, are getting the opportunity to race against even some of the drivers they race in the real world on the virtual tracks.
Yeah, I mean, this is going on. It seems like almost every week you hear a story of a new driver joining into the Northwest Series, and you hear of, oh yeah, no, one of my friends that races in the league told me about this and invited me to come in and race. And it's exciting to see the league growing and it being a way for drivers that race in real world to race virtually almost every day if you're able to hop on.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, some of the challenges can come into play where it's, for different people, it's a different learning process. For some people, Sam, it's instant. You snap your fingers. For some, they'll pick it up in your immediately. For others, it takes time to learn the sim compared to how it feels in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out the different settings to make it feel comfortable as Judd Wakefield now coming into the pits. And that comfortability is probably one of the biggest things for these drivers on how well they can adapt to the virtual side of things, because heard it from some IndyCar drivers that have tried out virtual racing is, sometimes you don't have the information you're used to of feeling the car and the wind bouncing off the car and the sense of feel. And it's more of visually on how well you're going to be attacking these races. So, different senses on how you're going to be attacking the virtual side of things compared to out there in the real world.
Carl Burke, by the way, has now passed his way on by Stephen Paulison after running 0.4 seconds quicker last time by. And this is the Burke we were expecting to see. 14 seconds back yesterday's lead, but he is closing in on several competitors as one of your quickest cars.
Yeah, Burke pitted back around 30 laps ago, and he's now making his charge, expecting to see O'Hare making his charge at more in the next about 10 laps or so.
We have now reached halfway in this race. Lap 84 of 167. It is 1-2 for Beaver State Racing. Take a quick break. You're watching LSRTV, your home for sim racing, for coverage of the Northwest Racing Series and its ARCA Series.
Every customer, every single time, needs to get our very best. From moment one, my goal managing a team here in the dealership is to make sure that that customer's experience is the very best that they've ever had. We expect and demand total transparency. There should never be a time in that transaction where the customer is wondering or not quite sure of what they're buying or what they're paying or those sorts of things. And having that transparency and doing things the right way is super important.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, right? Our Ram trucks, truck of the year, amazing trucks. We have fun Jeeps, and then the exciting Dodge and Chrysler products. Lots of performance there, lots of excitement there. They've done a great job in really creating a full scope product line that could suit everybody's needs. Whether it's a family vehicle or a fun vehicle or a utility type vehicle or a big truck, we've got it all for our customers.
Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the Northwest Racing Series and its ARCA Series, where so far Dennis Moore, he's been dominant. He's led a majority of the laps so far tonight. He leads over his teammate Stefan O'Hare by more than 3.5 seconds, with Kevin Smith, Ryan Bloom, Carl Burke rounding out the top 5. Justin Britt, Sam Dyer with you. Carlos Acosta in the director's seat as the pit strategy has opened up again. With 80 to go for Kevin Smith coming to 79, he is now ducked into the lane.
Yeah, with him having to come in this early, it is a big question mark of who can push it far enough to turn this race into a stop. And I think Dennis Moore and O'Hare, they're in the best position to push it out and turn this race into a 2-stop race. But for Kevin Smith, he's going to have to come in one more time.
That's going to be a tough break potentially, depending on how things break down. May need a caution later on, but wait and see how that now plays out for that machine. Currently, your top 10, Moore, O'Hare, Bloom, Burke, Paulison, Gambill, Vining, Smith. Last time by was scored 8th. It's now Toby Ritter's in that spot. Iverson and Watson are trading 9th and 10th positions at the moment. You see that battle now, and a good recovery from Watson after his collision to the wall from before. Iverson, meanwhile, 55 laps now on his stint of tires.
Yeah, and for the amount that he has been out there, Iverson is doing a great job trying to woo his way into, trying to stay on the top 10. But it is going to be a tall order for Iverson, especially it seems like he's getting better, especially this stint compared to his first on trying to save his tires. I think he's trying to get back into the same tire strategy as everyone else. That's why he's pushing it a little bit further. As coming into the pits, it's going to be the 26. Ray Foreigner going to be coming in. It also looks like Troy Daggett is officially DNF'd from this race.
Fortunate for him, would be scored officially in 19th, the lowest he can go on the board. Jeff Hagan continuing to turn laps. It's the opportunity to pass by him as Scott Hara having a very quiet race today in the 04, now into the pit lane.
Yeah, Hara had a couple of sketchy moments about 20 laps ago when he was racing around Foreigner and others, and Paulson was there as well, and almost got himself into the wall, but luckily didn't, and now just trying to survive to make it to the end of the race. I think that is mainly his goal, and now Watson comes into the pits.
It's been interesting how things played out so far. Ryan Bloom, take a look at him, very quiet right now. And this is just the rhythm part of the race, right? Where you have to get yourself into a proper rhythm if you want to be able to finish strong here in this race. Watson has already made his way to his box.
Yeah, expecting Watson to get out of there as fast as possible as Frank Harris now pulls in as well. As we're looking at Dennis Moore, I mean, he's been doing everything right as possible as he can do it. He got out to a major lead and just has continued to pull away. And I think for a lot of the drivers, they might be confused on how is Moore able to pull away from everyone else as much as he has. Is mainly because he's found that equal equilibrium of kind of sorts of being quick, running fast times, and saving tires at the same time. So he's not running as fast as he possibly can be, but he's running just fast enough to where when his tires fall off, it's not hurting him too much.
Now, keep in mind, we came into this race with 6 different winners in 6 races. This would be a big accomplishment if he can hold on, and that's the big if. To be the first back-to-back winner, let alone the first multi-time winner. But O'Hare, keep in mind, has been better at the end of the runs. Moore's been better from the short to mid-run.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Kevin Smith, he's been looking good. I'm also looking at Burke. Burke is another one of those drivers. He's been doing a great job of charging forward, but I think he might have hit the gas a little bit too soon. But, man, everyone is just trying their best to move as quick as they can. I think O'Hare currently, I thought maybe he would be making his charge forward at Moore. But maybe Moore, he figured out on that first stint, hey, I got to save a little bit more because O'Hare's going to catch me if I burn my tires off here at the end.
I think he's done that. Iverson, by the way, has had the duck in. He made it 60 laps. He will have to make one more stop in this race. So that's the unfortunate for Iverson. Outside the window, the stretching on the fuel potentially. Vining will also come in this time by. Also coming in is Robert Gambill. So they have now come in. They will all have to make it potentially one more stop because of where they are coming in.
Yeah, and it's the fact that first stint, everyone came in when they feel comfortable around 50 laps in, thinking that everyone was going to be aiming for that marker. And some drivers went for lap 40, 45 was their window. And for those that pitted in the 45 window to around 48, you were aiming yourself to be slightly short to making it to the end and turning this race into a 2-stop course. And now for these drivers, they got to figure out, do I try to save fuel on this stint, or do I just take the fact that I'm going to have to pit one more time?
They would have to save 7 laps though, Sam.
Hey, if you back off slow enough, there's a potential there. Burke now slowing down and coming into pit road.
Paulson also slowing down left by some cars. As you see Burke now into the lane. This is from the top 5 at the moment. Paulson will continue to chug along the racetrack. This is still outside the window too. And the funny thing is, some of these drivers can make it. They're just electing to pit outside the estimated fuel window by 5 laps.
It could be a comfortable ability of, hey, I feel like my car is getting a little bit too free or it's feeling a little bit too tight through the center. I don't want to risk throwing my complete car away, so I'll just pit, be conservative, and make sure I've got a machine at the end of the day. Or they feel like, hey, me short pitting, I'm going to be gaining a net gain over time instead of me staying out there a little bit longer and losing time by staying out on the older rubber.
Now on lap 100 this time by, it's Dennis Moore. Still leads by almost 5 seconds now. We're down to 4 cars in the lead lap. Paulson, the last of them, and a bit of a hairy moment there as Hagan elected to come down and pit into turn 3.
It wasn't a choice. He came on the exit of turn 3 into the outside wall that slowed him time, and then he went low. And this is not the first time that Paulson has had an issue with Hagan in front of him. So I would imagine Paulson's just thinking, whenever he sees the 27, just get out of the way or make the pass as quick as possible.
Hagan in turn didn't end up coming down the pit lane, it appears. And then Washington driver having a rough night. Newer to league racing. Sim racing was a lifelong racing interest for him. Now we see some of these air battles forming up. This is the bottom of the pylon for now, yes, but every point is valuable in some of these positions, keep in mind, that are starting to form up on the racetrack. Again, want to complete as many laps as possible. Paulson has come in this lap right at the edge of the fuel window to be able to make it on gas.
Yeah, I mean, Paulson, he's really pushing his window. He knew he was going to get close. I think he needed to go for another lap for himself, and then he would have felt a lot more secure. He's now going to have to figure out how to save just a lap if he's going to be able to make it to the end, which I think he can easily do. And looking right now at Kevin Smith, he's leading the drivers that are one lap down. He's trying to get by Dennis Moore, if possible, to try to put himself get back on the lead lap. And this would be a major gain for the 00 if he can get himself on the lead lap before the leaders even pit.
It absolutely would be. Yes, he still is in the potential possibility to have to pit one more time as he now passes by Paulson on the racetrack as well among those competitors, but still going to be vastly important. Is a little dicey moment. Lemke moves to the bottom. Wakefield goes up top. Thought they were going to potentially make contact there in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, you got Wakefield, who's really cruising on the outside. He's got his tires that are cranked up and ready to go. But for the 562, he's really on the older tires, still waiting for him to make his final pit stop. And now is making the call that he's going to pit, but he's got to figure out how to let the drivers that he's around, let them go on by, and they've sorted it out. All going to go on the high side of this 562.
Smart thing for the drivers to move up to the high side there as, by the way, Paulson a minute and 10 seconds back compared to your race leader is currently scored 2 laps down. That's how far back he was on the racetrack compared to some of the others as Moore has stretched it out to where there are still only 3 cars on the lead lap, potentially 4 if Kevin Smith can get there.
I mean, this is around the window where we were seeing O'Hare on that first stint really catching up to Moore, and Moore is now pulling away from O'Hare. This is giving me signs that maybe O'Hare was pushing, seeing that he was close to Moore on that first pit stop, and he might have pushed himself a little bit too far, wearing those tires out early on, and now doesn't have a shot at the end of these stints.
What can he do, barring any trouble, for our drivers to close up a 5-second gap, though? There's still lots of time in the race, but with them in the pit window, you have to wonder, what can you do if you're O'Hare to close this gap?
I mean, you're kind of hoping on Dennis Moore making a mistake. I mean, O'Hare made a mistake on pit road. He slid through his pit box. That cost him a little bit of time. But if Dennis Moore makes a mistake coming into pit lane, a little bit too conservative, or missing his pit box, those are small little details that can gain you a couple of tenths. And then the real big gains are how you're going to be attacking the track. I think he's got to be saving his tires for the long stint, and also hope that maybe O'Hare can get about a lap or 2 more on pitting a little bit later than a Moore, so he's got that slight advantage to try to gain on the 44.
Kevin Smith, by the way, has unlapped himself there. Moore letting by these drivers. Paulson getting himself 1 lap down, is now scored in 7th spot. James Vining also looking to get himself back to 1 lap down.
Still waiting for our top 3 to come into pit road. Kevin Smith, he has made the pass, giving us 4 drivers on the lead lap. Burke's now going to be the first car 1 lap down in 5th place as he's on the back stretch, and Moore's on the front stretch. So about half the course. We're just, oh man, everyone's now just waiting. One of those front drivers gonna finally hit pit lane because they are solidified and made sure that they are now within the pit window. They can make it, but maybe they're looking to pit around lap 112 to 115.
See if those predictions line in correctly or improperly. Either way.
I mean, it's always a 50-50 chance. You're either right or wrong.
You get what I mean. You get what I
Yeah.
mean. If it's going to be correct is the proper phrasing.
Yeah, I always have fun making these predictions on where these drivers are going to pit because the strategy aspect of racing is something that I really enjoy. Just seeing how drivers have to pick and choose. Do you want to undercut someone, get that advantage early, or stay out a little bit longer and try to have the advantage where you have to run someone down as Bloom now into the pits?
From 19 seconds back, he's now ducked in. It's been a quiet and strong day for Bloom. Looking like a potential top 3 run, if not top 4 for him on the day, as he's now ducked into the pit lane. Will lose a lap at least in this sequence, though, with how far back he dropped back. As now, Moore has to continue to let by our drivers. And this is going to be where it can be tricky, too, if you want to come into the pit lane. If you don't have the proper communication, it can cause trouble.
Yeah. It was a lot, as it sounds like Limke, after having a great run, looking like he was poised to get some type of a top 10 run, he might be calling it a day, as looks like we might be seeing as he's in pit road. I think Limke might be done.
Veering towards that way, as Moore has indicated over the radio, he is pitting this time. So Moore from the lead will come in, had grown the gap to about 6 seconds. Nice and smooth into the lane, right down to the speed limit of 45 miles an hour. O'Hare will follow suit, trying to gain some extra time into the pit lane. So both the teammates now coming in for Beaver State Racing.
Hey, right in that window I called. Let's go. As I'm not surprised. These teammates that came in at the same time that first stint and coming in for the second stint, it's just a team effort right now for Moore and O'Hare.
Oh, and O'Hare did it again. He overran his stall, a second consecutive pit stop.
That's like 2 seconds or more that he has lost just by that mistake alone on this race. And that's time that could be putting him in a better chance to run down our leader. And luckily he had a fast pit stop, but that time that he lost, it's so costly.
Yeah, O'Hare is doing some great pit stop sequences, but for now, it's Kevin Smith who will be your race leader. And boy, oh boy, could this race change if you see a caution flag. Let's put it that way. Smith right now cannot make it on gas per our projections, but he is in your lead by 13 seconds. It's the matter of, will he get the caution he's looking for?
I mean, Kevin Smith came into practice today, fastest car during practice, qualified 4th, now in the lead.
Dennis Moore has had to come in a second time.
Could it be speeding?
And that is absolutely huge. Dennis Moore, your race leader for much of the day, ends up getting a penalty, it appears, and has to come down a second time.
He has to wait now, as this is costly. Dennis Moore, a favorite, trying to win 2 weeks in a row. And now it's looking like O'Hare has just gotten this race.
Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, right?
It goes green to the end. What a gift for the 41.
And looking back, looking like in one of the segments, he might have gone 46 miles an hour, one of the timing lines. And here's one of the biggest things, Sam. When it comes to this track, if you speed by 1 mile an hour over any of those segments, you get an automatic penalty.
It is so massive. Penalties, those are mental errors. I mean, we were talking about O'Hare making those mental errors of sliding into his pit box. It was Dennis Moore caught speeding. That could be the most drastic error that you could have had all race.
The second place, you could also get the penalty. Keep in mind is where the blue line is with the blue cone violation, which also was very close to. It was about a 30-second penalty overall in the lane. Can't confirm on top of that little mile an hour over, he actually did cut across the blue line as well on his first pit exit, Sam. So it was a magnitude of errors that leads to Moore now being 15th position.
Moore had to stay in his pit box for 30 seconds. That's so costly. I mean, that is him having to run down pit road. That's already going to lose a lap, 2 laps. He's 2 laps. I mean, 2 laps down. He is not coming back from this. He's hoping for possibly a top 10 finish because other drivers still need to pit. That was Moore's money stop, and he threw it away.
And this puts O'Hare potentially in the driver's seat. Kevin Smith is now your leader. O'Hare is closing in by a couple seconds a lap. Then Carl Burke is on the same strategy as Smith, is in third. Gamble on the same strategy as well as them, is in fourth. Paulison is in fifth position and can make it to the end. In other words, we may see, as a result of this, a 7 different winner, possibly as a result of that major mistake.
Trying to keep with the pattern everyone else is trying to, it seems like. Another driver I'm looking at that's going to look for a great day, Ryan Bloom. He's on a very similar strategy as O'Hare. He could be using these fresher tires to really climb up and with a potential of a top 3 finish.
And this is going to be absolutely huge on how this plays out. And this really emphasizes the potential of the extra stop now for some of these drivers. This top 5 may change a lot in about 20 laps from now.
Yeah, I mean, someone that is a lap down currently could possibly finish in our top 10, top 5 that never thought that they had a chance because of the way that they pitted. I mean, I'm looking now at Toby Ritter, a driver that really didn't have the best start of the day, but he's been just staying quiet, been making his move slowly forward. He's up to 9th, and he pit inside of that window. He should be good to make it to the end.
We haven't mentioned Ritters all day. It's been a very quiet day for the 23 indeed for this one. It's currently scored in 9th. A +10 is your biggest mover right now.
I mean, for Ritter, he's been putting a lot of practice week after week, and for the potential of him getting a top 5 finish, I mean, this would be feeling great for the 23 that has put so much work into just trying to have some good finishes. Bad luck has also been striking this team. But I think for Ritter, he's hoping this race goes green based on the strategy call he's made. Vining now into the pits.
And that's for that extra stop we're talking about to make it to the end, it looks like, on the gas.
Also, Judd Wakefield following suit. So I think a lot of these drivers understanding we can't make it to the end. We'll pit now since we know we're good to the end.
So that's their money stops now coming into play, and there's still a shot at top 5 as a result of the shuffling here on how things played out for James Vining. An up and down day after starting off strong, fell back, and now has a chance for a solid finish. Paulison, meanwhile, among the drivers having solid runs, Dennis Moore still has a chance for a top 10, but still, as the fastest car on the racetrack right now, he's definitely going to be disappointed.
Yeah, Moore's goal right now is trying to catch up and get to Ritter. That is his complete goal right now, is try to be the first car 1 lap down. So if a caution does come out, he'll get that lucky dog position and he won't have to take a wave around to get back into get his lap back. So, I mean, right now for Dennis Moore, he has a goal. That's get up to 7th place. But this is not the goal that he wanted for this race at all. He looked like the most dominant car, had a chance to win this race, but a costly mistake under pit road. It's not with the 44 back in 10th place, and man, this has to be a hard pill to swallow for Dennis Moore. He wins last week. He had a great Darlington week for these guys, and coming into Charlotte looked like he was going to carry on that momentum. And now he is he's trying to just fight back and claw and get as many points as possible.
O'Hare, by the way, has closed what was a 13-second disadvantage down to just 3. And O'Hare, all he needs to do is keep the car clean now as a result. Either way, it's going to be a good day for Weber State Racing. Either way you determine things. But for O'Hare, you have to wonder what he's thinking right now at this moment.
I mean, just stay focused, keep running your race. I mean, at this point, he's got an 8-second gap over Burke. He's got fresher tires than Burke, fresher tires than Smith. It's just, you know, be smooth. You can be more patient now than what you were before when you come up to lap traffic and wait for them to get out of the way instead of you trying to pressure them to move. But as I say that, it's going to be Harris absolutely pressuring O'Hare, and O'Hare was not a fan of that because I think he was expecting the 11 to fully back out of that position.
I don't think Frank realized that he was there still, and that cost him a little bit of time, but still it's down to about a second or so. between these drivers, and it's getting reeled in by a second as talked about per lap. Smith doing what he can and hoping for some luck, but right now that luck about to run out. As here comes O'Hare, peeking to the inside, peeking to the outside. Smith slides up the track. Right it now to near side by side down the front stretch. Smith will give space to O'Hare, goes up high. O'Hare to the lead with 40 to go.
Yeah, Smith, I'm recognizing, hey, he's so much faster than I am. I'm just going to let him go. Gave the position, and O'Hare now to the point. And now it is coast and cruise control because most of the drivers behind him still need to pit one more time. Kevin Smith, I think he's the first car on our radar. We're expected to come to pit road here in the next probably 15 to 20 laps. He's going to push it as far as he can. As I say that, though, Watson now into the pits as well as Smith.
Kevin Smith coming into pit. He, as mentioned, could not make it on gas. He was able to go 41 laps this stint. Now it's the matter of where do drivers like Carl Burke now elect to come in? Because this is all going to now essentially be where just a couple drivers can make it on gas on the two-stop.
A lot of have you saved enough? Burke, another one of those drivers got to watch out for. Gamble. Also, Toby Ritter is right on the edge, but he should be good to make it. Iverson, also another driver to watch out for. Ray Forner, also in 10th place for the 26. He's another one of those drivers. So we've got about 6 on our window of can they make it or not.
Indeed, as we fall along with Ritters at the moment, it's still a 5-second advantage for him over Dennis Moore.
It looks like Cooper now comes in. I mean, for Justin, looking at these drivers and where they're at, I mean, is there possibly a thought of if you're close and maybe a 2-3 laps off, do you even try to just back off your pace and try to make it there?
At this point, the tough part is some of these drivers have to stretch at 7 laps, as talked about, Sam. That's the tough part of their decisions here on trying to go for an extra stop that, as we talked about, the mat didn't line up for.
26, one of those drivers I talked about, not going to be able to make it. He'll come in for his 3rd stop. We'll drop back. Dennis Moore talked about how he wants to be the first car 1 lap down. It is so much harder for himself.
Carl Burke also going to come in this time from 2nd spot. And Ryan Bloom is looking likely to be in that position towards the end if he can hold on. It's right now only a couple laps offset compared to O'Hare, and he's also dialed in this strategy as talked about. Very quiet day for him in the office, but it's been shown to be extremely fast in the short runs in particular. Long run has been an issue at times. 2nd fastest driver in practice last night, and again was 2nd fastest in practice tonight. Looking very solid overall as Moore is now within range of potentially getting to Ritters.
Yeah, I think for Moore, Ritters is the closest thing because all the other drivers that are going to be in front of Ritters are going to be having fresher tires than Moore. And it's kind of just a losing battle for the 44, needing a caution.
Oh, trouble back straightaway. Dennis Moore making contact with Hagan as the 27 cut down the racetrack down the back straightaway.
Hagan's been having troubles this race, and he's had a couple of complications of almost getting into the other drivers, and that is not the driver you want to be getting into.
And an interesting sequence down the back straightaway. Hagan again is in 17th, the last car running, 16 laps down. And you'll see what happened here where he's going down the straightaway. I think he was trying to get to the bottom here and didn't realize where Moore was.
Yeah, I don't think he was expecting more. I think what that of Hagan was expecting was he saw that of Moore behind him, thinking Moore was going to stay high. Hagan was going to drop low, given the position, so he can just keep on taking off. But it just wasn't aware when he started to pull down that of Moore also came down and collisions on the backstretch.
Either way, Moore is still able to make the pass this lap after Bits of contact. Appears more outside of a couple scrapes to his front bumper. Was able to get away with that, though. Could have been much worse for Moore.
Oh, yeah. It could have been sent to either wall, and that would have been disastrous. Could have ended Moore's day. And what was already a terrible, after his second pit stop, what has just turned into a terrible day after how amazing the first half of this race was for Moore. The second half has been a complete opposite, and he's now been involved in a wreck. He's had penalties. He's just hoping for this day to be over and get to next week.
Again, remind you, next week is going to be a night race at Kansas, 134 laps. That's going to be an interesting one on how things play out, because that is also a two-stop race as well on the math, in theory.
Yeah, that's also another place where tires are going to be even more massive than here at Charlotte. I mean, tires always going to be something to talk about at every racetrack, but Kansas, it's where you want to really, it looks like you can run low or high. As Paulson now into the pits, one of those drivers also we were watching out for if he can make it into pit road. Iverson coming into pit lane as well. So multiple drivers, they try to push it as far as they could, but knowing that they just could not save enough.
Robert Gambill has also indicated he'll come in this time by. He made it 42 laps on this stint in the 54. So that will move Kevin Smith up into a potential opportunity to still come away with the top three with his extra stop. He just needs to unlap himself. Just two cars around the lead lap, O'Hare and Bloom, who are separated by 24 seconds.
And both of them can make it. Bloom, I think, was about a lap short, maybe 2 laps short, but he's had plenty of time to try to save enough fuel. He'll be good to make it. And for Kevin Smith, it's try to unlap himself. And for Dennis Moore, he's going to try to stay in front of all the drivers that are behind him. It's going to be a lot of work, as Burke is already there on the back end of the 44. Has Gamble getting out of pit road.
You mentioned Burke already on the back bumper of Moore. That's with the much fresher tires, and that is not what Moore wants to see. After being your race leader majority of the race, again, for those just tuning in, Dennis Moore penalized after crossing the blue line on his access road exit. 30-second stop and hold penalty as a result. Cost him more than a lap. And after being in the lead by as much as 6 seconds, he is now in 5th position, 1 lap down. Unfortunate for Dennis Moore. Still going to be a solid points night, but not how he wanted this night to fare out.
No, not at all. And as we were talking about more issues for the 50 of Judd Wakefield, he got into the wall through 3 and 4, costing him time and almost bringing out first caution of the day. I mean, it's been crazy. Caution free. We have been green all the way through, but there have been multiple incidences where there was a chance of maybe a caution coming out.
Just seems to be the nature of the racetrack, because Charlotte is not a track where you see major incidents.
No, I mean, there's plenty of space for drivers to back off, and you know, the lanes that you're looking for are in the middle of the racetrack, so you got space to try to correct yourself if you get loose. And you know, it's a lot of focus on your throttle control, on how well you're going to get through these corners as well as you can. But you were seeing drivers jam-packed. Kevin Smith and others, they are all wadded up here of drivers with fresh tires and those with old.
And they're all stacked up behind your race leader at the moment. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. And this is where the multi-groove racing comes back into play a little bit. Second groove turning into the middle and top lines that drivers are utilizing. Kevin Smith, it's one of the fresh tires out of this grouping, looking to get himself back in the lead lap. They are approaching Jeff Hagan as well to add to this group.
You got drivers all trying to make as many passes as possible. I mean, Paulson and Vining, they were mixed up here as they're getting by O'Hare, and this has got to be a panic for O'Hare because he's got so many lap cars around him. One mistake by them could be costing the 41's day.
We're going to show what happened on the pit exit. You see that right there? That's exactly what Moore had happened for him to get that penalty, it appears. You seen him go basically above that blue line with the right side tires. That would have been in the exit in about turn 1. He also came up a little early on the track.
Yeah, and it's just getting up to speed a little bit too soon, trying to make sure that he wasn't giving it any extra time to O'Hare, and I think that just trying to get up to speed so quick, that's what cost that of Dennis Moore a chance to win this race. He was the most dominant car, and now he's just looking to finish in the top 5. Currently is in 5th place, but drivers behind him, there is some fresh rubber that is trying to run down the 44 coming into this race. I mean, we've ran 146 laps. This has been a long race, but these guys have done a fabulous job trying to stay green, and they've been doing it.
It's been a marathon. Once again, no caution flags the entire way. A couple close calls. But we have stayed green the entire way tonight. Very impressive from our drivers tonight, and very big overall, as a couple more drivers looking to try and make some moves. That is for position 8 spot. Gambo being let go by Vining this time.
Gamble is just trying to do everything he can, and what's crazy about, Gamble right now, he's running in 8th place. He's trying to catch up to Stephen Paulson, and I feel like I've been seeing the 58 and 40 and 54. They've been on top of one another all race long, and in the last 20 laps since those pit stops have happened, Paulson's able to pull away. But it has been fun to watch Paulson and Gamble continue to battle along in the middle of the pack.
Paulson is about 5 seconds ahead of these drivers on a different tire cycle, keep in mind. So he was able to get the jump on these drivers, but still. It's been that type of a night where you want to get yourself in position to be on the right strategy, and we've seen it play out. One driver nearly hitting the wall, Toby Ritters from the top 5, ended up kissing it.
Oh, man. He's just dropping positions now, and for Toby Ritters, I mean, I think right now a top 10, a great day for himself, but he's got to make sure to hold on. These tires are old, they're worn. He's got the most worn-in tires out of everyone on track. He pitted almost 50 laps ago, and he pitted around lap 100. So he's been out there for a while on these tires. It's going to be a trouble for him if he can make it to the end, as we're going to see a replay of what exactly happened here to Ritter.
And you can see just how close he got to the wall. That's Watson that he was next to. Just about kissed it.
Just get close enough. I mean, even if you brush it just slightly, getting that close, it shouldn't slow you down too much. You just don't want to hit it any harder than that, or you could be ripping up your machine, and it's going to be a terrible day. I cannot believe it that we still only have 3 drivers on the lead lap. It just shows you the power of drivers that are able to push it out and turn a race into a 2-stop compared to a 3-stopper.
And very impressive that Kevin Smith has put himself in the position he has been with the 3-stop as well. He's got an 11-second gap over Carl Burke. So even with the tire differential, he might have a big enough buffer to hold on. The question is, can he stay out of trouble right now? Carl Burke, clean track. Kevin Smith currently has traffic starting to build up a little bit behind him in Hera. And he is slowly closing on into several other drivers that are trying to sort themselves out, like Bloom, who is on much older tires, so Smith could still get as high as 2nd here. Whoa! One driver locks up the brakes. That was Hagen on the bottom of the racetrack again.
Just the woes continue for Hagen. He has had troubles all night long, and once again into the wall. And he's going to have to crawl his way around the whole entire course before he can get back into pit road.
Sketchy moment for the 27. Let's take a look at what happened.
Oh. Yeah, try to do the same thing that Ritters did, but just hit the wall a little bit too hard. And then missed pit road after slamming into the wall. And yeah, he's going to have to make the drive around for Hagen. And I think for Hagen, he's excited to go to Kansas just because it's going to be a new place to look at and give him another chance at probably attacking these courses.
And Kansas is going to be an interesting one because the top line is one line that can be dominant there. The bottom is still very prevalent there, but some of the drivers like to run up against the wall at Kansas.
Yeah, the first about 10 to 15 laps of a stint, sometimes 20 laps if you've conserved enough with your tires, you can stay low. But the more you race, the more you're going to be seeing drivers moving up into the middle to high lane, and later on, everyone's going to be trying to stay close to the outside wall. So the middle parts of the green flag stints going to allow drivers to have that multi-groove racing, kind of similar to what we're seeing here today. But I think the draft a lot more prevalent at Kansas than it is here at Charlotte.
Of course, that racetrack very prevalent on the ARCA Menard Series schedule in real life as well, home to its finale back last season. So it's a track that can put on some great racing when it comes to these machines, in both in real life and the virtual world. And it's going to be interesting which drivers carry the most momentum out of here tonight, because who really has impressed you the most, in your opinion, out of what you've seen this evening?
I'm going to say Ryan Bloom. He has really tried to keep his consistency. He was one of the more consistent drivers through all 3 series that we've had. But oh gosh, Scott Hara into the outside wall. He is riding the outside wall. Finally got off of it, and that was right next to Bloom, I believe. That was a scary situation. But the 04 is low and is coasting his way. That could have brought out a caution here, but luckily it did not.
And nearly hit the race leader in the process. It was right next to Kevin Smith originally with the 04. He is on the apron to get repairs done, but my goodness, you talk about nerve-wracking moments. That was one potentially for O'Hare in this one, especially coming to 11 to go.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see the replay here, and it was just side-by-side racing, and you thought maybe we were going to be all right, but O'Hare immediately goes into the outside wall, just tried to enter high and stay high, just a little bit too much into the wall, and his day is done into pit road for the 04.
Look to move off the racetrack. So the 04 off and away out from the pit lane. Under 10 laps to go. Coming up to 9 to go. O'Hare looking to close it out. What's been an intriguing one so far in this race. We've seen it all. Strategy come into play. Big time mistakes, but in the end, a big time day for Beaver State Racing. 9 more laps to close it out for O'Hare.
Yeah, I mean, we started with 20 drivers in this race. It looks like the 562 came back out on track to run a couple of laps just for good measure. Not going to be gaining any positions, but we've only officially lost 2 drivers of Troy Daggett and Ricky Bozer, and really everyone else. They've gotten into the wall, a couple of them. We've seen a lot of mental mistakes. Even our leader of O'Hare, we've seen him make some pit road mistakes, but it hasn't been too costly for the 41. As he's now trying to get by traffic. Ritters is going to go low into pit road. Man, this has been a great race for a lot of these drivers. Those that have kept themselves quiet and kept their cars clean, they're looking for some good top 10 runs.
The 04, by the way, has rode the fence again and nearly hit Dennis Moore, as Ritters, by the way, had to come in for fuel. So the 04 straight from the pit lane just ended up smacking the wall in these closing stages. That was a sketchy moment for Dennis Moore once more, who is having to have to be possibly thinking, what if?
I mean, running right now in 5th place. Just got about to be passed by Paulison, and yeah, the what ifs have to be racing for Dennis Moore for sure. I mean, he had the strategy call. You'd be running around where O'Hare is, and both those drivers would almost be running down and lapping that of Bloom, who Bloom was on the same strategy, but just wasn't running as fast. This is incredible to look at, the fact that O'Hare has almost lapped everyone. Kevin Smith, he got himself unlapped because he had to pit and have the fresher rubber, but O'Hare has been screaming quick as well as that of the 44.
So we now start 6 laps to go. Overall, how do you feel drivers will take away this race? Because we definitely seen some biggest movers and big movers. O'Hare is now your biggest mover overall in this race of the +9. But this was an intriguing one where, again, we've seen it all.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the guys that are in the top 6, top 10, they're going to be taking a lot of information from this. as most of those guys racing the other two series of the Cups on Mondays, trucks on Wednesday. So it's a lot of information that you're able to take in and throw out at okay, I need to make sure I save my tires. And for Dennis Moore, I think it's, hey, don't get caught speeding or making mistakes coming off a pit road. So it's a lot more of those mental mistakes, how to hone down and shave that off. And for some of the other drivers, maybe I do have to save more, or maybe I got to be a little bit more aggressive on my tires if I want to keep up with the drivers up front.
Now down to 4 to go. As it appears, Carl Burke is one of the drivers who has also quietly had a very solid day. Started as far back as 11th in some of these runs tonight, Sam, and was able to claw his way into the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, Burke, I think at one point was also in 3rd place. He's done a great job moving back forward. Burke really starts to make his move the longer these runs go in. And, for the 53, this is needed for Burke. I think having a good, solid top 5 run is exactly what this team has been wanting, and gets to now carry this forward into either next week when we go to Kansas for the ARCA series, or into the trucks and Cup, and try to take those mental notes that you took here today on how to make yourself a better driver with all this seat time that you got here tonight.
Coming to 2 laps to go now is O'Hare. It's Ray Fournier and Frank Harris. Fournier, I should rather say, and Harris have now started to shuffle a bit, but as these drivers now close in, who do you feel the most is going to be thinking back outside of Moore about this race and wanting to regroup?
I think for some of these guys, it's got to be Kevin Smith. I think for him, he was the fastest during qualifying. I think if he was able to stay out there a little bit longer and try to keep up with the same pace that we were seeing from Moore and O'Hare, I think the 00 possibly had a chance to try to at least keep it closer than what we're seeing from Smith. Still a great run for the 00, running in 3rd place, but issues for himself. White flag now in the air.
Final lap for Stephen O'Hare. It's been a dominant day for Beaver State Racing. His organization started off with Dennis Moore controlling the pace, but after a mistake from Moore on the money stop of the race, it was O'Hare who was there to pick up the pieces. Coming out of the final corner for the 7th straight race, this series will have a 7th different winner. Its name this time is Stephen O'Hare. O'Hare is your winner at Charlotte.
An absolute brilliant race by O'Hare. He had to stay consistent. He made a couple of mistakes on pit road, but they weren't too massive, and everyone else just could not keep up with the 41.
Second place goes to Ryan Bloom. Kevin Smith will come home in 3rd position. Just 3 drivers will finish on the lead lap to close things out.
I mean, that is what a race that goes completely green gives you, is the chance of most of the field going a lap down. We got 1 driver that's been looking so good and consistent. It was looking like 2 with Dennis Moore until he made his mistake. Well, there's Stephen O'Hare sitting and waiting for to do a couple of burnouts, and then for the rest of the field to come screaming in and giving him some victory slams.
And as mentioned, 7 different winners in 7 races so far this campaign. Beaver State Racing as an organization can go back to back tonight.
Man, what a race for these guys. O'Hare gets it done. I think that is the most crazy thing, is looking at the fact that we've had 7 races, 7 different winners. We've had some guys from the higher tiers come in, as here's your victory slams. Everyone coming in, and destruction derby at the end. The way that the Northwest Racing ARCA Series and all of the Northwest Series Tour drivers celebrate their victories with a destruction derby at the end. But man, what a race it's been, as we'll take a look at your final results as they're slamming through. Man, what a good one this was, Justin.
And as they celebrate in Northwest Racing Series fashion, let's take a look at your race results. As O'Hare, will win by 28 seconds over Ryan Bloom. Kevin Smith 33 seconds back rounds out your top three with Carl Burke in fourth position. Stephen Paulson finishes in fifth with Robert Campbell in sixth, Dennis Moore, James Vining, Judd Wakefield, and George Watson were your top 10 runners, Sam.
Yeah, and then you got Toby Ritter, Frank Harris, and then you got Ray Foreigner going to be in 13th place with Cameron Iverson and Aaron Cooper going to be in 14th and 15th. Scott Hara and Jeff Haggett going to be getting 16th and 17th. And Lectum going to be able to get 18th place with Troy Daggett and Bozer not able to finish out the race as the 129 did not even start.
Let's look top to bottom at your running order for these drivers as, again, 20 cars able to start, and in turn, vast majority of the field able to take the checker flag. An impressive race overall for O'Hare as he's your race winner once more here at Charlotte. Let's take the opportunity to be able to talk with O'Hare as he is your race in what was a dominating victory in the closing stages for him. O'Hare now joins us to the broadcast booth. How are you feeling about this victory for tonight?
Feeling great. That was a dominating run there by Beaver State Racing. Dennis had this one, I feel like, locked up and had a mistake there on pit road. So feel good to get a Beaver State Racing car in victory lane.
When it came... Go ahead, Sam.
I mean, for you, Stefan, I mean, how much we saw how green it was. It was a dominating run by you and your teammate of Dennis Moore. At what point were you thinking you were sliding through your pit box? Were those little mistakes you were thinking maybe this might be costing me this race?
Yeah, I wasn't too worried about it just because Dennis had such a fast car and I could somewhat keep up with him. I felt like he was really the only one that I was racing, and I felt pretty content just being able to follow him based off of our pace. But yeah, it was frustrating to slide through the pits there because it would have been nice to be able to race him for the win.
Now the next race goes to Kansas. Your thoughts on going over to Kansas City?
Kansas has been good to me in the past in this league, so hopefully it comes down to a fuel mileage race, and I think we'll still have some pretty fast hot rods.
Who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
Yeah, Beaver State Racing, Dennis Moore, Tyler King, and special guest Paul Newton all come together and work on driving lines and whatnot. Super helpful. And then also American Touch-Up Paints, Nicole Bryan Photography, and Peels for allowing us the time and money to do this. And also a big shout out to Northwest Racing Series. Again, it's a great league, and then also you guys at LSRTV for allowing fans to watch.
Congratulations on the victory tonight.
Thank you.
Stephen O'Hare taking home the victory tonight. He's your race winner here at Charlotte. Second place goes to Ryan Bloom. And Ryan, first things first, an interesting race for you. Talk us through your race today.
Well, I did not. I'm exhausted, first of all. It was a long race. I did not expect 167 laps to go caution-free. But, yeah, just trying to, I knew it was going to be some long runs in there, just trying to manage my tires. I don't think I felt I did an okay job of that. First run, it was probably ate up a little bit more tires, got really tight there on turn 4 a little bit. But I think kind of spread out and progressed. I was able to manage a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, you did a great job. You were able to be one of the few drivers able to push it out to do 2 stops. Were you surprised that there weren't more drivers trying to do 2 stops roads?
I was, because I kind of got that last kind of window there, and I know if I could push it just a little bit longer, I'd be in my window to make it the whole way. And I'm on the right side of a strategy for once. Seems like it'll always backfire on me, so it was good to be on the right side of one this time around.
Next race goes to Kansas. Your thoughts about going to Kansas?
I like Kansas a lot. Really fun track, really multiple grooves. I haven't raced it in a while, but I know the last time I was there, the high side was a good line there, and I enjoyed driving that high line. So hopefully that's still in play, and I think it should be a good race. A lot of room to maneuver, so should make for some good racing.
Who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
I just want to thank, well, first of all, LSRTV, and I think a great job you guys are doing, and I'm really enjoying the broadcast and happy to be a part of the series. And shout out to Jeff and Sean and all the admins for helping put this league on. And it's been a great league for me. It's the first league I've been in, so it's been really fun, and I've really enjoyed it. So shout out to those guys, and so yeah, that's it for me. But I really had a lot of fun tonight.
Congratulations on the second place run.
Thank you.
Ryan Bloom coming home in second tonight. And Kevin Smith rounded out the top three. The first of the drivers on a three-stopper. And Kevin, first things first, what came into the decision to decide to go on the three-stopper for tonight's race? You were the first of those drivers on that window.
I wasn't fast. I wasn't as fast as Stefan and Dennis, and I had to try something different. Those guys were just wicked fast, and I just had to try something opposite of what those guys were doing.
I mean, Kevin, you had a great run, able to get back on the lead lap. How much were you focusing on trying to conserve your tires, or was it just go fast as possible, try to keep up with those guys?
Yeah, as soon as I made the decision to take the extra pit stop, I mean, you're going to run less laps on the tires, so it's really just hammer down and, try to gain as much track time or track position as you can.
Next race goes to Kansas. Your thoughts on going to another 1.5 miles, but in a different shape and another track where both the bottom and top lines could be prevalent?
Yeah, no, I like Kansas. It's a cool racetrack. I enjoy the fact you can run multiple lines there. I would imagine there's going to be some strategy there as well. This just the fact that we went so many, well, the entire run green flag, which is really hats off to the guys I'm racing around and that we're out there tonight. It's just going to show a lot of different strategies and a lot of different game plans.
Who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
LSRTV, you guys are great. The fact you picked this up and we're able to kind of display what we do here is fantastic. The Tom Denchel Auto Group, I really appreciate their support. Jegs Automotive, they've always been a part of my racing career, and then West Coast Goalkeeping.
Congratulations on the run tonight, Kevin.
Thank you.
It's Kevin Smith, your third place finisher. I'd like to thank him, Ryan Bloom, and Stephen O'Hare for taking the time to speak with us. And Sam, your final thoughts on what was a green to green race, a green to checkered flag race, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, props to the whole entire field on doing that. I know we captured a couple of moments of drivers on the wall, getting in trouble with other machines, but somehow able to stay green all the way. Props to them. Also to O'Hare on getting this win and continuing the trend of 7 races, 7 different winners. And I'm excited to see if we'll see an 8th different winner, but we've seen a lot of very good drivers get wins. I feel like those Beaver State drivers, they're going to be the ones to watch and probably will be the ones to become the first multi-time winner.
That note, it's time to say goodbye. I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway on iRacing. But for our producer, Carlos Acosta, for my co-announcer, Sam Dyer, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching LSR TV, your home for sim racing.